Hello, my name's Richard and I'm one of the occasional preachers at All Saints Church and I'm also involved in the youth work. I was thinking about the midweek message that I was going to bring to you today and putting it in the context of the seasons we're in. It's not colder outside, we've had a lot of heavy rain and there's probably nothing nicer than to be in, sit by my fire, read a book and have a hot drink. Now, there's a book that's really inspired me and I'm only probably about a fifth of the way through, and it's written by Terry Waite. Terry Waite in the 80s and 90s was the envoy of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and part of his role as envoy was to negotiate the release of hostages held in the Middle East. Some of us are familiar with the story, and what happened with Terry was he went to Lebanon and he'd arranged to meet some captors of I think four hostages that were actually held. But instead of negotiating, the people who were holding these hostages actually took Terry hostage, and they held him in solitary confinement. Now I know that time was only, I know from going on that was 4 years. I've only got to the bit where he's really just been taken into captivity. During that time he's tortured and his life has been threatened. He remains positive, and what inspired me by his story was he was never going to ever have any regrets about what he did, about any of his actions. He wasn't going to blame anyone. He was going to remain positive during his time in captivity. Unbelievable how hard that must have been for him. There was a particular time where one of the guards was negligent with a gun, and Terry could have picked it up and he could have used it. I know he'd served some time in the Guards Regiment, so be familiar with firearms, but he chose not to. That wasn't his mission. I haven't got much further in the book, but I do know that after 4 years he was released and he returned back to the United Kingdom. I was wondering why I felt moved to share this with you and to bring this into a context within the Bible. Now, the passage I looked at, and it's written on my mug here, it's one of my favourite mugs, is that I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. That's in the book of Jeremiah. Now, there's no particular reference to that Bible passage in this book, or I haven't come across it yet, but I thought that was so relevant. And then I thought of the relevance to myself. Well, for some reason I chose this book, and for some reason I chose to share it, and inspired by a story. Now, we're going through difficult times at the moment. We've now gone into another phase of lockdown. We're having to overcome the disappointments where we went through a period where the church was open. Now we can't meet as a church. Hopefully, this will only be till December. But maybe we could take some inspiration from certain role models, like I did this weekend, but also to think in the context that there is a plan, that God does have a plan. He has a plan for our future, but also just taking inspiration that these plans are there to prosper us. And if we can guarantee that future that He's set out for us, then there is hope. Amen.